Now before I start on today's tutorial, I just want to explain I am not a cosmetologist, I am not an esthetician, I'm not a hair removal expert, but I do know how to work with sugar. And so for today's tutorial, that's really the only thing that matters because we're just making some candy. We're gonna make some candy. So we're gonna make a sugaring caramel for hair removal. It does not stick to skin as much as wax does. You can rinse it off with water. So if you make a mess like I did, you can just rinse it off with water. This stuff can kind of get everywhere if you're not really used to working with it. So some important things to remember when you're cooking this is we're not paying attention to time and we're not paying attention to color. What we are going to pay attention to is the sugar. We're going to pay attention to what stage we are cooking the sugar to, and there's a really easy way to check to make sure that your sugar is cooked all the way and not overcooked. This is actually a pastry trick that one of my pastry chefs taught me. It's just a really easy way to gauge different stages of sugar, and you can also use this when you're making actual candy at home instead of this candy, which is not candy, but it is candy. So when I was checking out some hair removal products, not for my own personal use, just purely for the sake of this video, I was actually really surprised to find a shocking number of, I don't know what, in a lot of hair removal products. Here's some of the things I found. Oh, and these. Yeah. Okay, so here we have our ingredients for our sugaring. I have 2 cups sugar, 1/4 cup lemon juice, plus 1/8 cup of water. And then I have 1 teaspoon of salt. Okay, now this is ready to go on the stove, and this spoon does not go back into this pot. Make sure you rinse and dry your spoon. You don't want any sugar crystals or liquid being introduced back into this once you start cooking it, because we want to make sure that we prevent crystallization. Clean spoon every time. Now we got some bubbles, and this you want to just swirl. We're not stirring, swirl. I just gave my sugar a little swirl, and you can see it has darkened significantly from being white, no longer white. I'm just going to get some with a spoon right into ice water. Don't tip your spoon. You want to leave the caramel in the spoon so it's kind of stays in one blob. And then we can pull this, make sure it's cool all the way, work it off the spoon. Like a soft caramel. So this is kind of like a softball stage. Not done yet. Almost there. Alright, this is where we want to be. You can tell that it's done when you leave it in the cold water for a few seconds, and it gets pretty hard. You can't really work it with your fingers anymore. You can't squish it. So we are done. A clean spoon, and I'm just gonna stir. This is gonna take a while to cool down. Make sure you scrape the edges when you're stirring. This is basically what soda is, so think about that. It's still hot, so Once you are finished, you want to make sure you get your product into either an airtight container or get it into a plastic baggie, because once it starts to really set up, it's going to be pretty impossible to get it out of the container that we worked with it in. So you want to move it to its permanent home. You can roll it into little balls and put it in something. You can divide it into little pieces and wrap them in plastic like candy, or you can just put it in a jar. We want to keep it away from moisture, we want to keep it away from air, and we want to try to keep it away from heat as much as possible, so we're not going to be messing with the sugar crystals at all. We want to move it before it cools all the way, because this is what happens when you don't do that. This was clearly a mistake on my part. When I realized I left my caramel in the bowl too long, I tried to salvage it in some plastic very quickly. Genius! Let's put it in some plastic. I wasn't really thinking it through. And this is what you get when you do that. Make sure you grease your plastic before you put sticky things inside. Greased plastic. Greased. So this is why you mise en place before you cook. Sailing before you. I think that this is probably hopeless. If you're not really experienced in using this, I would definitely recommend taking a little pinch off for yourself so that you can get used to working with the product, you're comfortable with how it feels. This is a good thing that this cleans up with water, because I have it all over myself now. Don't put your used sugar back with the rest. Gross. So with this, actually all you need is just the product itself. You don't need anything to help you remove it. You don't need to warm it up. You just grab a little glob of it and work with it, and we're gonna do that. Now, if you want to actually see me use this caramel to remove some hair, check out the next video.